Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you, albeit virtually. I'm imagining that you're there and perhaps you're smiling from your offices or your living rooms or wherever you may be. As Peter indicated, I'm John. I am the Vice Provost for Diversity and Inclusion and Clinical Professor of Management in the Krannert School. I came to Purdue about 16 months ago to lead in this effort of D&I. And I think we are making progress as an institution. My topic today is titled Purdue Leading with Our Core Values. I would change that a little bit to say Purdue Seeking to Lead with Our Core Values, because this is an ongoing process of coming into alignment with our core values that I hope you will engage with us in. I'll tell you a little bit about my philosophy on diversity. I am a strategic diversity specialist, and so that is not diversity for diversity's sake or only because it's the right thing to do, but it's leveraging diversity to drive excellence in higher education. I believe fundamentally that, and the data indicates that we do better, we ideate better, we create better outcomes and engagements through diversity. How do I define diversity at Purdue? Not in terms simply of race and gender and sexual orientation and the like. All of those things are critically important parts of developing our diversity. And it's not simple difference or certainly not deficiency or marginalization or inferiority. Diversity is not affirmative action or equal opportunity. Diversity is excellence. Diversity is excellence expressing itself through the intersections of perspectives and lived experiences. Diversity is excellence, expressing itself through the intersections of perspectives and lived experiences, mine and yours, as different as they are. And so I often say to people, what's my diversity? Gates's diversity, right? And they'll say, perhaps, you're black. I'm like, yeah. You're a man. Mm-hmm. But what else am I? I'm black, I'm a man, I'm gay, I'm a father, a grandfather, a scholar, an activist, and a nice guy most of the time, right? My diversity doesn't lie in any one of those things exclusively, but at the intersection of all of those things. And so when you see me, I'm John, and that is my excellence. When I see you, I see your excellence. And I hope when we see our students who are coming to campus in interesting times, somewhat concerned about the environment of COVID-19, a pandemic that we have all faced, and for others, also concerned about a secondary or perhaps even a primary pandemic of race and racism that we've encountered this year and that we've encountered over the years. We want to lead through these times and all times through our core values as an institution. What are those core values? Honor, integrity, respect, inclusion, growth, and innovation. Honor. How will we honor the space as faculty members who are called to lead a new generation of young people into their possibilities? Honor. How will we honor our fidelity to our own enterprise of becoming and learning and growing as scholars and faculty members? Integrity. With what integrity do we engage in the work of human development? It requires a level of authenticity and even vulnerability from us. Respect. Can we respect everyone for who they are, irrespective of whether who they are vibes with who we are? Can we respect people in terms of their pronouns, in terms of their experiences? Can we respect women and men equally in everything we do. Inclusion. We all get to be at Purdue, and we come here from different spaces. But let inclusion go further, to be engagement. Inclusion says we all enter into the stadium of possibility equally. Engagement says we all enter into the stadium on the field of play in the creation of destiny. I want each and every one of you to be fully engaged in not just your teaching, but in your learning, in your ideation, in your engagement with your departments, in leading the way forward. I want you to help us grow. Grow. Do we come to a place like Purdue to stay stagnant or to be stagnant? No, we come here full of hope and possibility and vigor, readiness to engage with the world through our scholarship and our students. In the process of that, as we help students grow, it is important for us to continuously grow and to be nurtured into that growth. And as Provost said, to have that community around us that enables that, and then innovation. And that's really the point of it all, isn't it? Why do we do all of this? Why do we come together in a university? Why do we grapple with social issues? Because we want to innovate a new reality. We want to innovate a society where everyone belongs and everyone matters. We want to ameliorate the difficulties and the ills that constrain our possibilities as a nation and as individual people. We want to be innovators of possibility, and that's the community you have joined, and that's the work that I hope you will engage in doing. We are in an interesting time in America, and an interesting time at Purdue as well, because we're part of this great nation. We have witnessed over the past months racial distress, unrest, born out of pain and shock and release. We call the names: Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Rayshard Brooks, George Floyd. We witnessed 8 minutes and 46 seconds of sheer horror in the killing of George Floyd. And frankly, that shocked the consciousness of the nation and of the world, but it did not shock Black people, because Black people have long felt that pain, have over years and years and years seen that indignity, and have had to grapple with just trying to have people understand our humanity. 8 minutes and 46 seconds of a man on the ground, incapacitated, saying to the officers, "I can't breathe," calling for his mother, who had already died, and people around saying, "He can't breathe, lift him up." There was no mercy, there was no humanity. And so the nation has been called into a space of what some might call racial reckoning. And what does all of that mean? And what does it mean for us at Purdue? I need you to know that the reason we say Black Lives Matter is not a denial of anyone else's life. It is not that we don't recognize the full value of every life, and in fact, we recognize that full value. And it has been expressed time and time again that white lives matter, brown lives matter, blue lives matter, all those lives matter, except sometimes ours, right? We've been crying about Black Lives Matter in a different way for 400 years. This is not new. Black people came to America in 1619 in chains. Between 1619 and about 1754, Black people were considered 3/5 of a human being in the United States by law, not fully human. Slavery ended in 1863 formally, but ostensibly in 1865 when Texas caught up. Between 1865 and 1964, Black people lived in segregation that was sanctioned by law. Black people gained civil rights in 1964, and Black women gained the right to vote in 1965. In the 50s and the 60s, during the civil rights movement, you would see Black people protesting, marching, and Black men would hold up signs saying, "I am a man." They were clearly men, but their lives had been so denigrated that they weren't seen as men. In fact, they were called boys and treated with such great indignities. Indiana is a wonderful state. It is also a very complex state. And there are spaces that have been spaces over the course of time where Black people have felt that their lives mattered less. And so that's the moment we're in. We're in this moment of saying, can we find and appreciate the dignity of all people? And in that, can Black people be part of all people? And so we're going to lean in this year around, as Jay indicated, a theme of pursuing racial justice together. Pursuing racial justice together. What does that mean? I've been giving talks around campus saying that really we get to be in this space one of three things, perhaps. We get to be racist, we get to be not racist, and we get to be anti-racist. Racist, we believe, are bad people. Right? I was at the University of Virginia before I came here, and so I dealt with the alt-right and the KKK, and I know about that look of racism, and that's what we think it is. To be not racist, and frankly, most of us are just not racist, right? Most of us are not racist. I am not racist most of the time. What does it mean to be not racist? It means that we get to be good people, that we get to divorce ourselves from the realities of how racism becomes rooted in conscious and subconscious. It means that we don't expect racism to exist, and so we don't look for it, and we can sometimes become blind to its reality because we see the world through a lens of goodness. Goodness is how racism creeps in to our curriculum, to our pedagogy, to our policies, our practices, our systems, our culture. It's not through the lens of bad people. It's through the lens of good people and goodness. I have said, give me a bona fide racist any day over an ostensibly good person, because I know how to grapple with a racist. But good people like me and perhaps like you, it's hard to grapple with the sense that because I'm a good person, I can't be doing bad things that damage others. Anti-racism recognizes the nature of the being of the nation. It is perhaps like me, deeply in love with the nation, and yet deeply aware of its imperfections, and that racism can dwell anywhere and everywhere. It is not passive, as being not racist is. It is active. It actively looks for differential treatment that is negative, differential outcomes in policies and practices and systems and structures, in curriculum and pedagogy. To be anti-racist means to not be silent and to not be a bystander to acts and incidents of racism. It means being able to stand up in faculty meetings, my colleagues, and express what is right and support faculty who are women or minorities or white men, frankly, who may be being marginalized in the conversation. It means being constantly critically self-reflective. And so what we hope to do is to move systematically from goodness to action. Pursuing Racial Justice Together will be a semester-long and, in fact, a year-long engagement around these subjects where we can engage in deep learning. We will begin the year on September 2nd with Ibram X. Kendi, author of How to Be an Anti-Racist in Conversation with Me. We will then have on September 8th Benjamin Crump, who is the civil rights attorney for the families of Trayvon Martin, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, about 16 different families. And so he will be here in conversation with us. Dolores Huerta and Julian Castro, former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, will be in conversation led by Maria Hinojoso for Hispanic Heritage Month. Patrice Cullors, one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter, will be with us in October. Eduardo Bonilla Silva, who wrote the book Racism Without Racist. He's a leading sociologist and chair of sociology at Duke, will spend an evening with us. We will have the University of New Hampshire Power Play, an interactive theater group working with faculty, staff, and students on bias intervention through skits and theatrical performance. And so that has been a very impactful engagement for us prior, and we hope you will join us for that. Prior to the election, we will have a panel discussion called Democracy in Black with Michelle Norris, NPR host, Eddie Glaude, who wrote the book, Soledad O'Brien, and Tara Setmeyer. We will then have an evening with Brian Terrell Clark, who plays George Washington in Hamilton, an evening of both engagement and song. And we will end the semester with Mahjareen Banaji, co-author of Blind Spot, The Hidden Biases of Good People. So we hope you will join us for that, and you will continue to hear much about that. Jay indicated as well that the Board of Trustees has developed and will be launching in the next week or so a task force on equity, where it is charged with looking at issues that may disenfranchise or at the very least lessen the possibility that all people can reach their possibility, right? So we're looking at systemic biases, systemic issues, and environmental issues at Purdue. The environmental issues will grapple with climate and culture. The systemic issues will grapple with policies and practices and ways of being. The task force will be representative of the entire university with some 50 or so people on it from all of the colleges and the like. The work is going to be very important to the future of diversity, equity, and inclusion at Purdue. The task force work will end in December, early January, with a report to the Board of Trustees, and then in the spring we begin implementation. So that's a big deal. I want you to know about maximizing student potential as well. I'm responsible for faculty, student, and staff success, recruitment and retention, and education and training. as we look at undergraduate students, we have launched a university-wide project to understand the success trajectories of individual students and students by demographic. And so we have produced a report on the success metrics for race and ethnicity across the university and in every college. That work will be driving some of our work going forward. In the spring, we will have a conference called Maximizing Student Potential, where we will focus on inclusive pedagogy and what you can do to be best supportive of the students. Let me close with this. We believe in Purdue. I love Purdue. It is a wonderful institution that is becoming who it's called to be. Jay indicated that we were founded in 1869, that shortly after the Civil War, like many historically black colleges and universities were, we were founded with a mission. And that mission was around our values and around service to the state of Indiana. That mission was about providing access and equity to the citizens of the state of Indiana, most of whom were farmers. We graduated our first African-American student in 1894, 2 years prior to Plessy versus Ferguson, which established the doctrine and law of separate but equal and began segregation. During the period of segregation, that 100 years, and particularly in the 50s and the 60s, Purdue was among a handful of public universities that actively recruited African Americans into our graduate programs. And those African Americans, many of them went on to teach at HBCUs and to educate another generation or two of black scholars. Today, we are the #1 producer of African Americans earning PhD degrees in chemistry. We're among the leading producers of African American and Latinx people earning PhDs in mathematical and computational sciences. We are the founding home of the world-renowned NSBE, the National Society of Black Engineers. We are the founding home of the world-renowned SWE, the Society of Women Engineers. We have tremendous programs and tremendous students. We are poised to take a giant leap in the space of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we will take that giant leap by you taking one small step of engagement, one small step of self-assurance. And as you begin this work with our students, I want you to know that, one, the students look to you, and that you're more than enough to provide for their needs. And if and should you need support along the way, contact Peter's office or contact my office, and we'll be there. I believe in you. I believe in you in this moment. Believe in yourselves too. Thank you so much for this time.
I think Lisa may chime in with...
We have questions?
Yes.
I'd love to have questions.
I will go ahead and ask one that's come in.
Okay.
The question
You
is,
need
have
support
considered,
along the way.
John, doing a weekly
Contact Peter's office or contact my office.
strategic diversity and inclusion?
Well, Peter, Peter and I have talked about doing a podcast to support faculty during this time, but I've not really thought about doing a weekly podcast. This is an interesting idea.
I'm up for it if you are.
I am. I really am. That's a wonderful idea. Thank you.
Lisa.
Lisa, do you have any questions for me? Well, Peter. Lisa?
Okay, she has to send it to some site. I think I have something.
Okay. Peter's going to tell me some questions. And I'll repeat them so that you can hear them.
She has clarified that her sound connection doesn't work.
Lisa's sound connection doesn't work? Okay.
People would simply like to hear more information about the programming you have.
people would like to hear more information about the programming I have planned. So, yeah, it's a lot. What we try to do is, as we work on pursuing racial justice together, is to provide platforms where everyone who wants to be engaged in the conversation can find a space, hopefully, where they're comfortable. And so some of it is going to be kind of large scale. What if we were really on campus and doing this in a theater? We would pack out a theater, right? So these large scale events. The second stream is education and training. And the third stream is arts and culture, right? So we'll be bringing in artists and spoken word and the like. We'll be bringing in some of the great thought leaders. I've shared with you the program for this semester. Next semester, I will tell you that it's shaping up to be quite equally as dynamic. I know that Robin DiAngelo, author of White Fragility, is coming, and several other people will be engaged in this conversation, and we'll have more training opportunities as well. Everything will be virtual in this COVID-19 time. Everything will begin at 7 p.m. for the most part, and they're during the week. There will be a formal announcement about the series coming out today or tomorrow to be announced in the newspapers, and there'll be an article in Purdue Today and other spaces. The Provost will put the information out as well. There'll be a new website stood up by tomorrow morning for this effort, and you can get tickets for any and all of the events, so you can start planning now. And really what I want you to think about is leveraging these great speakers and this time for your curriculum to engage with students, right? So whether it's having students attend for extra credit, whether it's something that you can embed in your own teaching as an assignment, all of those things matter. What we're trying to do is to cover the various spaces. Now, there will be more speakers coming. This semester, beyond the lineup that I've shared with you, we're going to engage with voices, with some different voices as well around this conversation. I would say to you also that if there's a need for you to have someone speak to your class about race issues or anything of that nature, you can call on my office. The cultural centers report to me. We have the LGBTQ Center, the Black Cultural Center, the Asian and Asian American Cultural and Resource Center, the Native American Education and Resource Center, and the Latino Cultural and Education Center. So all of these spaces report into my office. We also have the Butler Center and the Advance group that works with both Peter and me. And so all of that support is there. The other thing that I would say to you, my faculty colleagues, is we are developing a program where we can provide, hopefully, and we'll hopefully have this next semester, faculty with peer mentors around race. And so to really help grapple with the conversations, right, look at the issues, but confidential, peer-to-peer support system around difficult topics on race. And so that will be coming. Do you have another question, Peter?
Yes. People are looking for guidance on how to engage well with diversity and inclusion, both these events and activity overall. How can they get involved?
How do you get involved as a faculty member in the diversity, equity, and inclusion work and the events? Well, first thing is send me a note. Send me a note saying, I want to be involved, right? There's so much work to be done, and we would love to have your engagement. In terms of the series, again, just let me know what you'd like to do. There's Dr. Christopher Munt in my office who will be developing engagement activities. And so you may want to have discussion groups, right? You may want to have a read this semester or this year. You can develop a reading group among faculty colleagues yourself, right? To begin to engage. Perhaps groups of you who are new faculty here want to do something. I'm happy to engage with you in that. You can recommend areas where there needs to be further training or further exploration, and so send me ideas that you might have. You can lean in on into the work of the task force, right, and make your perspectives and your thoughts known. Every college has a diversity committee of sorts, and there's someone leading diversity in every college. And many of the colleges have task forces that are happening right now and working groups that are working on diversity, equity, and inclusion issues. Engage with your dean and with those efforts locally as well. And I would say, too, that we have a dynamic community in Lafayette, West Lafayette, the greater Lafayette community, where there are needs and ways to engage all around. The school systems, the service agencies, join a board, join an activity. The community needs you in every way. And so I'm happy to have conversations, should you like. You have another question, Peter?
She is typing.
She's typing.
Oh, they're interested in slides of guidance they could use in class in this area.
Yes. So, well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. So I can give you some slides, but about what, right? So slides about,
For instance, to share with their students, what are the resources, what are the plans, what's
to share with students what the resources and plans are. Oh, that's good. That's good. Hadn't thought about that. Okay. Yes, let me work with my team and Peter's team to develop some slides. I think we can do that in really short order. So when I leave here today, I will have my office begin to develop that, and I'll get it over to Peter. And let's say that we'll get it out to the faculty generally as a supporting effort. So thank you so much for that recommendation. It's awesome. All right, new faculty, rocking. Getting us going. You got another question? This is getting exciting.
Yeah, no, that's it.
No. I have to leave you, but I appreciate you. Take care, everybody. Thank you.